Okay, some quick analysis on Bitcoin and the crypto, Bitcoin in particular, but just the crypto markets. What's happening here? Well, it's it's certainly looking slightly more bullish than it was earlier on. And if you this is a monthly chart. If you look at the monthly chart here, I mean, it's spent 6 months barely going anywhere. Basically, one up, two down, one up, and then eventually in October we sort of got the boost, possibly helped by the exchange traded funds and etc., or the potential, should I say. Whatever's caused it, it's given us a higher low, and so on this time frame it's looking a tad more bullish. If we start coming down the time frames a little bit, weekly wise, well, you can see it's not been an easy move. It's quite consolidated at times. It's having its moments coming through to the dailies, and actually it's just come back to the weeklies actually. And some important factors here is this: it's well worth. Of course, I'm called the pivot trade for no other reason that I use pivots a lot. But what shouldn't be missed is the annual pivots, the yearly pivots here. You can see that last year they picked the top effectively on that retracement before it rolled over, provided some decent support. They're not always going to give absolute tops and bottoms or whatnot, but they certainly do come into play quite a bit, and we've seen a bit of a reaction from last Thursday when it ran into that pivot itself. Also, we'll actually just drop down to the dailies now, and we'll put the monthly pivot on here as well. And when we put the monthly pivot on, you can see that last week when it hit that high, it actually went into the monthly pivot and the annual pivot, or was fractionally short of the annual pivot at the same time. So price wise, it's pushed up there. Now there's a lot suggesting that this sort of move over the last month or so is sort of seen the market go from fear to greed, and probably the profit taking was due. That's certainly potential. Where to from here? Oops, I'm coming down far too quickly there. Where to from here is questionable. One thing I would say before everyone gives it up, well, there's two things actually. I do need to come back to the 4-hourly because it showed quite some important factors here, although the market still held up well and it's bounced well. However, there's so much noise running in the background there. The problem of a market that's literally, well, I suppose most markets are now so led by I say Facebook, that's so old, isn't it? Sorry for you youngsters. Twitter and everything else that's out there. Well, sorry, even that, I've even used the wrong term for that. Is it the X and Snapchat and everything else that's used, Instagram and the other things, Discord and Telegram and whatever else you're using these days. All these things, everything's being shared on these, and it's very much a market that's driven like that. As I say, the other markets are probably driven like that to a degree, but it's a youthful market in terms of there's a lot of youngsters that trade it. They're really caught by the excitement of it all. So well, the sentiment that's running through this, of course, is, and it's very much a hyped market at times. It's not really the market, particularly Bitcoin wasn't really meant to be an asset that had any great value. It was just a means to moving money from one country to another without paying the extortionate rates that some of these brokers were charging. Anyway, so what we got here then, so it pushed up there, seen a huge volume that was well outside the norm there on that volume on that, but what did it do? It couldn't hold on. So obviously a lot of this was selling volume coming into play here. There's selling into the highs basically as it was happening. There's a suggestion that the whales were involved in this, that have such a high effect on it, and we saw the sort of the next bar, which is a bit more normal for the higher volume, but still we really saw a shakeout there. However, it recovered and it pushed back up there, not to the highs, but it's pushed up. The strangeness yesterday, I think this is much more news driven. At 6 o'clock yesterday, the volume's coming through more towards a sort of gossip on exchange traded funds. Sorry, that's what I was drifting off to when I was talking about the technology and different sites, etc., where data's changed or shared, exchanged even. So we've seen a reaction to that, but that reaction has just come back to its weekly pivot. So we're bouncing from one thing to the other. We are now back up to its weekly key pivot. It was down to its S1 there, and some support off of the quarterly pivot. So we're sort of sitting there across a number of different pivots here at the moment. They are providing some decent resistance and some decent support at times. Where to next? Well, I've got a bit of a question here, or a thought, that if this does manage to break beyond the R1 here, both the yearly and the monthly, where it hasn't hit the monthly pivot itself, when it hasn't done that, it's got more chance of running up towards the R2. So there is scope for it to get up to plus 40 in the near future, only if it can break the highs here, of course. Only if it does it is the other factor, you could say, but it needs to give it a decent chance. It needs to get through its yearly pivot. Now, what we could see, and it's I wouldn't put it past a lot of these markets, we're seeing it to a degree with the likes of euro, pound, etc. on the currency markets, where they're getting into these rangy chops. Yep, we had some decent movements yesterday, and I was surprised when I was looking at this. We're looking at the shift. Yeah, it moved about 300 points up here, but relative to the market, it's just someone coughing relatively. But then we had the huge sell-off, so it's become very easy to sell, get the momentum to the downside, or quick momentum to the downside. However, as to say, with these retracements, I think there's some belief in there. What the volume is like relatively, well, we should really look at that actually. So we've seen a bit of an updated date. Actually, let's go back to the dailies and put some volume on there. Let's just switch the volume on. So yeah, the up volume today is significantly less. It's quite light at the moment, but of course we've still got quite a bit of day to go. It's only 5:30 in the UK at this stage, so we've got another 6.5 hours to go. So other couple of factors just to point out here and be aware of. Of course, there was divergence. I say of course, but there was some divergences running across the highs here. Let me just get rid of that volume and open this up. So we had both RSI divergence here, some MACD divergence. RSI divergence really looks like quite like a double, or is it? No, it wasn't quite a double. It actually picked up there, but certainly on the slower moving, slower moving MACD, it's shown a divergence over there. But obviously, some traders, technical analysts, that sort of suggest this is overbought, so it can't go any higher. Well, it's probably worked that off now, and it certainly can go higher. Got this sort of hook here. Got the potential for really a continuation in my book. So there you go. Yes, it could break. If it breaks this area, look out for the R2. Hope you found this useful. Bye for now.